he has his some slides in the handout. He's also got a real short narrative text. But available in the library are copies of his book, The Teaching Continuum. And in the back of the book, it has a CD. There are 3 copies in our library that you can go to the online catalog and reserve, and they will actually deliver to you as a faculty member through, inter-office mail. So you can really avoid the brick and mortar if you really, really want to. But you don't have to, because they were very helpful when we went to find it. They knew right where it was, too. So anyway, these are available to you, and Dr. Giles will start with his expertise. So thank you very much for coming.
Sure. I was on campus, actually. That's before it starts. Listening to what's been going on here, I'm really much aware of that after being away from the academic part in school for about 12 years, and all this idea of what you're doing. I have they talk to me about a new curriculum. We have 35 new curriculums. I don't know what the curriculum looks like. I hope it's better. It always can be made better. But I do know a bit about teaching and a few more bit about learning. And I want to focus the first part of this thing on the syllabus. And I don't know how many of you people realize or understand that the syllabus is a contract legally. It's a contract between you and your students. And in this litigious society we have, somebody who you cause to fail might take you to court because of the makeup of the syllabus. And that's in higher education law. The thing that they look for is that statement of the purpose of the course and the objectives of the course and how you evaluate. And if they aren't linked together, you're going to pay. It's over the institution. So you want to make sure that, my sense, I'm going to show a syllabus that I put parts of the syllabus that I put together, and I call it a continuum syllabus because the 5 different principles in it are linked to each other. I think in your book you have a copy of something that says continuum components for course syllabus. Can you take that out and look at that as I go through this?
Behind the orange paper in the handout.
Yeah. I don't need to.
Oh, okay.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, actually, I have a more up-to-date copy. I gave this one that you have in there to Barbara yesterday, and of course I changed it in the afternoon, and then last night at my waking up at 3 in the morning and doing all these things, thinking through stuff. Well, I changed it again, but not on the first page. The first page is pretty much it. I like, in the course description, I like to tell the student not necessarily what subjects you're going to cover, but how the student has to study and what's the most important part of the course. What are the major concepts in the course, and how does that attach to the past learning, and how does it attach to the next learning? I kind of tried to do that there. I didn't do it as well as I think I could, but I did it probably 5 or 6 times, and I probably should do it another 10 or 12, and probably ask a few students to read this and see if it made sense. But this particular one is on is a course on critical thinking. Now, I've been teaching it to adults up in northern Wisconsin, and I'm using some of the ideas from this book that I put together in the teaching. And if we have time today, I will probably give you a sense of that. I'm a person who likes to have students think things through rather than my telling them. So that's just my thing to do. Anyway, in this course description, you'll see some things highlighted. Right? Those are the major concepts for that course. Those for that course are premises. You're going to deal with critical thinking. You're going to deal with premises, inferences, assumptions, and personal and or social biases that get into a decision. That's the makeup of critical thinking. Richard Paul, who is the guru in critical thinking in education in California, has been doing this for about 30 years, and he's known as, he and his colleagues are known as people who really know what they're talking about. And I've basically stolen his stuff to get or use mine. So, then if you think about, we're using critical thinking here quite a bit, and if you really think about it, you ask anyone in the street, do they have a definition of critical thinking? It might be different. There are 800 million definitions of critical thinking. So one of the things I've done for my students is define critical thinking that we're going to follow in the course. I even got it highlighted in there. All right. That thing sets the stage for the continuing thing that's next, called the goals. And the goals have to be linked directly with the description of the course. They usually are. Sure, the ones that you put together have done that. I developed goals, though, for a course by thinking of what it is at the end that I want the students to be able to show me they're competent in it. By the way, competency is really a overused term. It's a big weight out here someplace in 15 different directions. But anyway, my term for competency is you can perform to a certain level in a particular task. It's pretty much a dictionary definition. I just segued something here. So when I developed my first course, I got to this point, and it was about I got down to about 6 goals, and I began to think, hey, really, I'm kind of repeating myself on this. So I ended up with 4. I had a goal for each one of those. A goal for each one of these major concepts. They aren't on here. Last night at 3 o'clock, I decided was the goal of a critical thinking course is that a student, or particularly for assumptions, is to have the student at the end of the course be able to identify what the assumption, be able to analyze the assumption, being able to judge whether it's accurate or not, and if it isn't, being able to change the assumption so that it's accurate. And they have to do that to a level that I, as a professor, approves. So that's linked closely to the description of the course. Yeah, that was it. I think that's good enough. That lets the student read it. It knows what he's going to be, he or she's going to be doing, and how much they have to do about it, and how they're going to be tested for it. And those are the three critical issues, by the way, that the court looks at. So it's important. You think about the goals of the law. All right, the next principle is writing course objective, and I guess that's where I link to what you're doing.
Right.
My course objective. Oh, by the way, I have this up here for a purpose. These are the principles of the teaching developing a film profession with United course. First, the course description, then the goals, and the learning objectives, and the learning activities, and learning contributions. The last one is kind of incorrect, but instead of having a straight out curriculum, I don't like those, so I put it through. Does anybody have any comments on my jabbering so far? Want me to jabber more or just go home? All right. So I have on the next page the objective. How to I'm also on the date in terms of technology. Oh, by the way, this CD that I have, the teaching curriculum that goes with that book, there's an electronic version of it, and it is how to design what I call learning objectives. What I call learning objectives has 4 different parts, and one of the parts is the outcome. If at the end of this you're interested in getting a copy of this over the internet, just let me know, and I'll send you.
This is Dr. Giles. Some of the online viewers are having a little problem hearing you. Some of the online people are having a little trouble hearing you. There's your
that's the mic?
That's your mic.
I don't have a LaVal's mic?
No. But if you would like to put it wherever you're
stand here.
There you go, and I'll hear too.
Yeah, wherever you are comfortable.
It's really a performance objective. It's really a performance objective, and with a twist. The description of the content to be studied is one part of it. The description of any conditions required for learning or being evaluated for the past is part of it. And the description of performance required in order to evaluate competence is part of it. And that criteria standard must be reached in order to be seen as possible. So, I had this. I worked with a group of faculty from here, but years ago, some time ago, about this CD, and I found that we were having a bit of problem with my definition of learning objectives, because I have in there competence, which cannot legally be covered with multiple choice questions, which all of you use. What that means is, if you're going to use this learning objective, you're going to have to teach in complex teach using complex concepts, or which most of you do, particularly in but you have to evaluate using a clinical using a system, a rubric, if you will, another term that's on haywire, by you'll have to test a higher learning skill, is what it is.
What about experience matching?
I don't know. I know that the research on it shows that you have to that multiple choice doesn't cut it.
Well, that's what national boards are going to now. It's
Modified
matching format.
Yeah, modified.
No, it's a matching format. They get a vignette.
Yeah.
And then they get the choices.
Yeah, I refer to that as modified essay. I suspect that works, but I don't know that if in a competence, in a objective that requires you to describe something. And these objectives all have active verbs, which requires like describe, explain, analyze, that sort of thing. Being able to do that to be seen as competent. So now, there's a major change in thoughts of faculty at this point, particular point, because it's a major change for many of you, and change in the way you teach. Wow, I don't know you teach, you get this pretty well. I don't know about the rest, but I've seen a lot of yours. The point is that right at this level, at this point, you're evaluating students. You'll be evaluating students at your teaching activity. That's part of the teaching activity. And those are your outcomes. Whether the student has learned it or not, those are the outcomes. So the outcomes, instead of being at the end of the design, is here almost in the middle. And the student can take a look at that and can determine what it is they have to learn and how much they have to learn and how do they demonstrate their learning. So it's completely student focused. I should have a question on this one. No. No? Okay. So the next thing is course learning activities. And first of all, as you are aware of right now, I'm a pretty poor lecturer. So I never do it very much. But I always have worked with students in terms of activities, where I had the students through activities, and I call them enrichment activities. So I would for the teacher activity, the way I do it is I put up some activities we're going to do during our session as teacher objectives. I call them that. I like to confuse the issue, so I call them teach. And I put them on a screen, and it's there during the whole course, the whole day. It's up there. So students can see the connection of what we're doing and that, which is related to the course goals and related to it. It's focusing on students, basically, rather than the subject. And it's teaching at a higher level of concepts rather than factual. And it's testing at a higher level than factual. So that was it. So, okay, the teaching activities that I like is I like to do my song and dance for about 15 minutes, and then I like to put the students together and have them do various kinds of things where they talk with other students and discuss things that's been covered and their opinion of how it's been covered and their opinion of what might has been added to it, or what should be taken out of it, so that the teacher gets a sense of, are they understanding that? And as they're talking about it, they're enriching the long-term memories in their meaning, in their head. And therefore, it makes it much easier for them to recall it when it comes up again, or anything that's very close to it. But that's the purpose of it. Now, the research indicates that the retention of students during that process is way higher than a traditional 50-minute lecture. The amount they will learn is way higher than in the 50-minute lecture. So it's worthwhile to just make that switch. But it's awkward work. Yes, I'm sure.
I just wanted to point out to all the participants that we put in the back part of your handout a list of teaching strategies and activities, learning activities. And this particular list was one that we provided at APRAC last year. But Dr. Giles said it was very similar to, many of the activities are very similar to what he uses in his courses because they require that higher level critical thinking and application of the information that they've just got, which is the point he was making.
You can also find that kind of information as an appendix to the book. There's numbers there. There's a list of active verbs in the book, so that's available for you to use it. At any rate, the student evaluation up there is passé because you've already done that when you do the activity. So what you really are going to be doing is evaluating the course or the session that you just went through. You take part of your presentation to evaluate that. And so you get feedback. You have to instant feedback to help you improve the course. So that's it. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do is elbow the person on your right. Elbow the person on your right. And those you two people are going to work together on some questions I'm going to pass up. So that's called dyad discussion. Randy, would you help
Oh dear. Well, I need help already. I am. Totally. Confused, but anyway.
Yes.
On here, there are two questions on here, and I want you to discuss both of these. And one person, the person on the left probably takes the first question and discusses it with. Okay.
So that's really try it. Yeah. Okay, do it right. We'll just go through it. Hey, look at this. That's a problem for right?
That's the conflict. A concept can be one fact, or it can be 100 million facts. When it gets up about 10 facts in this package you have, then it's called I call it a complex concept of teaching. And that complex concept, that's almost required to be taught in this model. And so I recommend you people who are doing basic science who focus on mechanisms. They're always context. A lot of facts in it. And by teaching that, that huge concept, the students learn the facts. And they learn it in context of the concept. And the research indicates that they remember it better and recall it better. So it's worthwhile practicing, whether you do this model or not. Dr. Bob about that. He does it. And probably some other people do. You do it back there. Anyway, that's basically it. And the last one, what else would you like to what kind of a problem do you anticipate would need to be solved before one switch to using my definition of learning objectives as described in the prior session? What problems might there be as a teacher? What did anybody talk about that?
We discussed that the assessment needs to be closely tied to each of the that would be a challenge.
And if you use this, the four-part learning objective, you've got to tie in. That's so your assessment is right there. And the student knows right then whether they're confident. That cuts down to. On the other hand, if at the end of the course the institution in its wisdom will say, you need to give a midterm or a final. Right. Develop a modified essay or any kind of test you have, and I'll bet you your students will come out ahead if you use these things. Basically, because they'll learn more and they'll remember it more. And I've got to get out of here before the book comes. Yeah, that it?
We have a few more minutes of questions, comments, discussions, any experiences that you would want to share about developing a course syllabus, determining what the course outcomes would be, what the learning objectives would be.
Here's a paper.
And you take just a minute, because I know one of the things that will always come up in most of the people go by is trying to find the line to separate goals and objectives.
That's you're right.
You know, I know when the way you draw stuff on one end is the goal, and when it's too narrow, it's objective, but you don't want to syllabus that's got 600 objectives on it. And you know, I mean, you've got one broad goal that's so vague, you don't know what you're doing. So those two kind of end up blending. Are there any hints or suggestions that will help people
particularly when you get to do the objective, because there's a darn use of thinking of subject and fact. And it's basically you have to take a concept. And so if you can do that in the goals too, so that's probably one of the reasons for mixing. I'm not so sure that you really need goals. But I think it's required. Okay. I was going to do a thing on critical thinking. I'm not going to be doing a thing on critical thinking, but you notice that on that sheet that you have, I have these major concepts. They're highlighted in the sheet.
Lots of connections.
No.
A little bit.
These are the major concepts. I'm really coming around. And this is how they're related. The assumptions are related to the inferences that's related to the decision, and the whole package is called a premise. And that's the definition of those terms. The definition of assumption is in that book your handout that you got. And I was going to show you something, run you through the process identifying and analyzing assumptions. But I really have fun with critical thinking, teaching critical. It's a fun thing. Particularly these days with this mess that's going on, it has been going on in the political arena of all those meetings where all these people and one woman got up and talked about what they would do and how they would accomplish it. And if you don't believe there's some rotten assumptions in that dialogue, I love bitch for saying.
We need a quick break.
Hey, click that thing.
Click it?
Yeah. That one.
Wheel?
Good. Click it.
Oh.